Good afternoon, everyone. And before we get started, I got two individuals I'd like to recognize that are in the room. Two of our past branch, aviation branch command sergeant majors. That's Sergeant Major Glidewell and Sergeant Major Thomas. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. You've always given myself and probably every other individual in this room, from when we were young soldiers to where we're at now, very good advice and mentorship and counsel. So thank you very much to both of you, and thank you for your continued service and how you impact the branch on a daily basis. We also have our EPMD OIC, Colonel Steele's in the back, so if you have assignment questions, go ahead and hit her up as soon as we're done here. Hey, we got a great representation across the board from all three compos here in the room today. There may be other people filter in, but I know time is precious in an event like this. We're allotted for an hour and a half. We can take as much time or as little time as possible. So the deep dive, what it's supposed to be centered around, is aviation maintenance and the ALC and SLC redesign. So I'm going to take about probably 10 minutes and just go over my notes. We don't have any slides. I prefer not to brief off the slides, because then y'all tend to just look at the slides and try to extract some type of information out of it. But really what I want you to pay attention to is the three individuals I'm getting ready to introduce. And when I approached them about sitting on this panel or this discussion, I wanted to make sure that we kind of got a broad stroke of, when we talk about aircraft maintenance and what we're doing out in the field, in the operational units or even the generating units, is to kind of get a wealth of knowledge across the spectrum. We probably could have had a whole bunch more people up here, but again, we only have an hour and a half. And I think what they'll talk about is probably important or indicative, or it doesn't matter if you're in the Guard, the Reserve, the active component. When it comes to the challenges, the best practices, things that aren't working, where we need help with when it comes to professionalizing and advancing our maintenance proficiency in the enlisted cohort. I think they have a good base of knowledge. So the first guy here to my left, to your right, is Command Sergeant Major Stephen Helton, Army Special Operations Aviation Command Sergeant Major from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We've got Command Sergeant Major John Martin. He's our National Training Center, or NTC. He's our 15 Zulu Eagle 40? Was. But he is now the Ops Group Sergeant Major at NTC. It's the first time ever that an aviation guy has held that position. Hey. He directly works for... That's what I'm talking about. I was told that he was the only guy left there at NTC. He works there for Command Sergeant Major Rebut. I'm pretty sure all the ForceCom guys exactly know who Sergeant Major Rebut is. A good friend of mine, an awesome warrior. Then on the end, we've got Command Sergeant Major Brian Howe, 25th Cab, Command Sergeant Major, leading the great Tropic Lightning Cab out there in the Pacific.
It's a rough place to be, Sergeant Major.
I know it is, and I observed that firsthand in December. So, hey, one of the reasons why, and then I'll come back this way and tell you why I picked these guys or asked them to do it. So, one, in Brian's cab, when we talk about decentralized operations and maintaining aircraft and flying aircraft, and why it's important that our mid-grade NCOs is it makes sure that their professional development, that we set them up correctly, not only professional as NCOs, but more importantly, how to maintain our aircraft. What Brian's cab does when it comes to Pacific Pathways and being where they're located, they operate in a decentralized environment on a daily basis. So the cab is never together. They could be on the Big Island doing a CTC rotation. They could be in one of the numerous countries throughout the Pacific with small teams and aircraft, and getting after building partner nation capacity and building those relationships when you need. And so, not that you're not all doing that, but when I can look at one of a good example of that, Brian's cab is doing that on a daily basis. The reason why I asked John Martin to be here from the NTC, or National Training Center, and we also have Sergeant Major Arsenault from JRTC. our other CTC here in the States. Jimmy Etheridge is not here, who represents our guys over in Germany. And then also Tom Hale, who's out, that works alongside with Brian. But John brings knowledge that he sees all you guys, okay, on a rotational basis that go in and out of the box. He absolutely, his team is going to put you to the test when it comes to operating in a field environment. When it's working on our aircraft or flying them or occupying a field site or conducting convoy operations or security operations, he's got a wealth of knowledge of observations when it comes to how we're fighting our cabs down to the platoon level. So that's the reason that we asked Brian to be here. And then my good friend Steve Helton from the Army Special Operations Command. They're working all over the place, all over the world, all over the country or whatnot, and probably the gold standard when it comes to decentralized operations and working in small teams, prosecuting our enemy that protects our way of life, but more importantly that their ability to go out and work and rapidly deploy quickly and maintain their aircraft in a high state of readiness is another reason why I wanted to have Steve here. So to all three of you, thank you very much. You absolutely represent subject matter expertise in our branch. You all do, and I appreciate you guys coming by. So I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time explaining ALC, SLC, redesign, because there's a lot that goes along with that. First and foremost, one of the big redesign that we're doing is in our advanced leader course, specifically in our technical maintenance courses. So right now, ALC is very task-based, just like AIT is for all our MOSs. We're trying to switch more to a skill-based training program. You guys hear me? Okay. We're trying to switch to a more of a skill-based program in ALC. And one of the reasons we're redesigning ALC maintenance is so it marries up with an issue that we're getting after concerning the Holistic Aviation Task Force, specifically recommendation 52 and 54. 52 and 54 specifically outline that, or to make the recommendation that TRADOC will develop a aviation maintenance training program, or I like to say an aviation maintenance training proficiency program. And the program is really centered, I'm not going to talk too much about it today, but the program is really centered around operational units, and it's to bridge the gap from the time a kid graduates AIT until they start ALC. So when we looked at that recommendation and what that program was going to look like, the problem we're having in ALC right now is we have a lot of NCOs who are showing up to the course who just don't know how to do their job. And it's no fault to their own. I mean, it kind of is. But when the institution taxes the operational units for soldiers to go and perform specific jobs, broadening jobs, and they're pulled away for 2 to 3 to 4 years at a time, and then they come back to go through ALC, they're just not technically at where they need to be when it comes to go through ALC. Additionally, ALC, our traditional ALC, and it's no different today than it was when I went through BNOC back in 1993, that it's very task-based, meaning that the POI is set up that the students are going to have to do specific tasks. They're going to have to get checked out on those tasks, and as long as they show proficiency in those tasks, then they go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And so right now, in all the COEs, specifically in ALC, the centers of excellence have been at their liberty to really teach whatever they thought was relevant at the ALC level, not so much at the SLC. And we won't talk too much about SLCs, more ALC. So when we look at ALC maintenance, there's a lot of things that we can really gain efficiency by redesigning the course. We're not going to have a discussion this afternoon on what that redesign looks like because we're still quite a ways away from it. And after being in the position for 1 year, it is an absolute pain in the rear end to shift a way you do something inside of TRADOC compared to the way that it's been going. I mean, it's like a buried tick, you know, and you want to get all its teeth out and make sure you get the whole thing out before you treat it. So we're going through that process right now. But we're going to shift to a more skill-based ALC. It's not going to be so much task-based or hands-on the aircraft. And its main center is really going to be teaching a young NCO how to manage maintenance rather than how to manage and be proficient at a whole bunch of tasks. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. I can answer any further questions. Just know that it's a big process, and there's several other issues or tasks that we're doing that are going to impact that redesign. I would like to talk about one specific MOS, and that's the 15 Echo MOS, which is our UAS maintenance course. That course right now is taught down at Fort Rucker, Alabama. We are working on moving that course up to Fort Eustis, so we have all our maintenance courses in one spot. There's some efficiencies that can be gained by moving them up there. But when we look at one of the big problems from a PME, AIT perspective that we have as a branch right now is we've got to figure out what our echoes can do right now. So I think one of the big things that I get from the CAB CSMs when we talk about the UAS community is what the 15 echoes are allowed to do. And it is a big question I ask weekly. You know, hey, where are we at from converting our FSR task or our contract task, what the contractor does on the vehicle compared to what a green suitor does. I think we've got a pretty good optic on that now, and I think we're ready to move out. But I can't redesign, or we can't redesign 15 Echo ALC until we fix AIT. So there's a lot of stuff we've got to do in AIT to make sure we're producing a good 15 Echo out the chute before we can fix ALC. So really in closing well, I got one more thing to talk about ALC. But the big thing before we get, there's just a lot of stuff that we've got to do. We just can't fix one little portion because there are things to the left and to the right, downstream and upstream, when it comes to fixing a POI that we've got to take in consideration. The big thing is resources, how we're going to get after that, how it affects you guys, the cabs, is my biggest concern, really, when we try to make a change in the institution. Well, last thing I want to talk about ALC and SLC, because it will affect SLC, is Common Core. So in ALC right now, across all the centers of excellences, there's hardly any Common Core being taught. Common Core is your basic leadership subject, task, for lack of better words. I'm not talking about, how to write an NCOER and award or anything like that. And I'm not going to go through the suggested curriculum on what they want to do. But what I can tell you, is that right now it's looking like about 72 hours, okay? That is going to be injected into both ALC and SLC. And so what really affects all the COEs is how they're going to put that into ALC, which is very technical in nature, and how we're going to pay for that. So there's a bill associated with those 72 hours. In the aviation branch, I think we have the trade space across all our MOSs to absorb the 72 hours without asking TRADOC for a big bill. That's not necessarily the case with some of the other COEs because they're very protective of their technical training, as we are. But when we redesign specifically aviation maintenance ALC, we're going to make the course a lot more efficient and proficient for the soldiers. When Common Core does come out, this is the Army, this is a SMA Army General Milley directive down to TRADOC that we're going to do this. So when a soldier receives ALC Common Core, it's not going to be any different. It'll be common amongst all the branches. So whatever 11 Bravo, a 19, a 31, a 74, a 92, you name the MOS, when they go to ALC or SLC, the Common Core curriculum will be the same. And the last thing with ALC is, so you all know maintenance-wise, ALC is taught in various lengths. So we start classes about every other week. When we're done redesigning ALC, it'll be all one length. So it doesn't matter if you're a Tango, a Uniform, a Delta, an Echo, you name the maintenance MOS, it's going to be about 10 weeks long. So the shortest one we have right now is about 6 weeks. and the longest one is around 17 for our Yankees and our Romeos. This will be a lot more efficient for all the MOSs. There'll be a lot more predictability for the cabs and operational units and for the academy. We will also be able to gain capacity and throughput for all 3 compos once this is done. But at the end of the day, we're going to make it about the same length, which is right now is looking between 10 to 11 weeks, just like our SLC. All right, that's it for ALC and SLC. All right, I'm going to give you some quick things so we can really get to the crux of the thing, and that's maintenance training. And I want to talk to you real quick about some factual stuff from an institutional lens on issues that impact maintenance training, okay? So the big thing is our SMDR, our Structure Manning Design Review, and our TRAP. And TRAP simply is our SMDR process. So I'll just give you an example, is the Army wants us to train 215 tangos in a year. When they trap us up, that's the Army telling us, hey, the 200 that we told you that we wanted you to teach, we need you to teach another 200. Because one, either we're growing in strength, or two, the APAS model has shown that we don't have enough through the fiscal year to support the units, or our retention is too low. There's numerous things that affect why a trap gets instituted into the schoolhouse. The biggest MOSs that is affecting right now are the 15 Echoes, the 15 Yankees, the 15 Whiskeys, and the 15 Tangos. And the trap that we're working through right now is going to hit this summer is trap 1703, and then 1801, which is the gigantic trap that's going to start at the beginning of the fiscal year. So the reason I tell you that is when there's a trap above and beyond what we're contracted to teach in our schoolhouses, whether it's at Rucker, Eustis, or Huachuca, that directly impacts you all. Because we don't have some little magic pebbles that we pour water on and abracadabra. We produce an instructor. So those instructors have to come from your formation. And I'm going to get to the numbers here in a little bit to tell you what we're pulling from. So like I mentioned earlier, when it came to ALC and SLC, the 5 big things that I look at, what the institution is pulling from you all when it comes to manpower, when it comes to relevant subject matter experts, is the drill sergeants, recruiters, SGLs, platform instructors, and AIT platoon sergeants. The number 1 rank that Colonel Steele there in the back and Sergeant Major Mark Smith, soon to be Sergeant Major Stan Brown, that we probably look at pulling from grade plate is your staff sergeants. All right. When you look at the staff sergeant population within the enlisted cohort in the aviation branch, which right now today is just a little over 19,000 people, that constitutes 16%, only 16% of the force. More importantly, down to D number, we are authorized 3,046 staff sergeants across all MOSs within the branch. So when you take a look at that, we're pulling right now roughly 783 staff sergeants and sergeant first classes out of the operational force to do those 5 big things I'm talking about. The next big thing that's impacting maintenance training is our MRC3 and MRC4 coded soldiers. Hey, don't get me wrong, people, they get hurt. We got to fix them. That's our responsibility. They probably got hurt doing the job that the Army asked them to do. But when we sit at 12% MRC3, so if we just look at the staff sergeant population and apply 12% to that 3,046, we're talking about 365 people who are non-deployable. All right. So when they're non-deployable, yep, we'll take them in the institution and make them instructors. But when they're so hurt that they spend more time in McDonald Army Hospital or Lister Hospital down there at Fort Rucker, we can't use them as instructors. And am I telling you to fix that? I mean, yeah, I'm asking you to look at it, but I'm just giving you a factual number of what impacts your ability on a daily basis for your mid-grade NCOs or your senior NCOs to train your junior soldiers. And at the end of the day, that's probably where I lose the most sleep, okay, is the young kid who just graduated out of AIT and shows up to your unit, and for the next 5 years, are we ending up to our end of the deal when it comes to ensuring that we're starting off young specialist or private martel and teaching him or her how to be a good aviation mechanic. And when you take in all those things just from an institutional lens on what myself or Colonel Steele or Mark Smith look at on a daily basis to fill that institutional requirement, because we've got to do it. I mean, if we don't do it, then you all are going to suffer. What I'm really worried about is we're pulling a lot of experience out of your operational units in order to build that maintenance capacity. Hey, let there be no mistake. So as the Army is going to ramp up and grow again to its end strength, and you all know that we have to get to 476,000 by the end of the FY, that's a NDAA law action in which we have to retain approximately 6,000 people through the retention program, and then we have to attrit in over 9,000 people. That's a big bill. That is a big tax on the operational units to pull those people out in order to meet that end strength. So my supreme boss, not General Gaylor, but not General Milley, maybe it's my second supreme boss, General Perkins, the TRADOC commander in Sergeant Major Danforth. They will tell your FORSCOM units, they will tell General Abrams and Sergeant Major Schroeder that the operational force is going to shrink for a while, okay? And the institution will swell for a while in order to meet those end strength goals. We don't know if it's going to go up next year, but what we do know is we have a gigantic institutional build that we've got to train right now. And you're the ones who are going to feel the impact the most. The problem that I have from a branch CSM perspective is when we pull those people out of your operational units to get after this trap, is that we just don't train the trap and then send Terry Clavon back to his unit. Terry Clavon now belongs to the 128th probably for a good 2.5 to 3 years, because we're just not going to bring Terry Clavon and his family and move him and everything up there and get through the trap, which usually is by FY, and then send it back to the third cab. We've got to do our best between the brigade CSM and the PD managers up at HRC to make sure we get the right people back out into the field. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Sergeant Major Helton, things that we need to work on that potentially could help our ability to progress our young maintainers is one is our culture, our professional aviation maintenance programs, and something that I got from my good friend here in the middle, and I talked to the sergeant majors at lunch about, and that's desktop leadership. So the first thing is our culture. We've got to build strong cultures within our organizations that support a thriving environment for young soldiers to progress and learn. They need to feel that they're part of the team. I'm all about being hard and tough, but also fair. And I talk to, whenever I visit a unit, I spend most of my time in the Delta companies and the Bravo companies, and I'm talking to your platoon sergeants and your section sergeants, because what the main thing I always want to see is how they're tracking and progressing their personnel, and how are they codifying that. And when I say codifying it, are they putting it on a piece of paper? Is it going into DTMS? I mean, how do I know when they leave Sergeant Major Q's organization or First ID and they show up in Terry Clavon's cab down at third cab? How did they know what kind of experience Chambers has when he shows up? And we are not doing a good job about that. DTMS is not the vehicle for that. I don't think it's not detailed enough for aviation, and that's something we need to look hard at to do. But back to the culture thing. We've got to develop a culture within the branch that soldiers want to thrive and get after. Professional aviation maintenance. Hey, listen, the branch is really good at taking a part off and putting it back on the helicopter right now. What we are not good at is how to troubleshoot that part, how that part operates on the helicopter, how it interacts with the helicopter. how it gets its indication up to the cockpit, how it interfaces with other systems on the helicopter. And so basically, y'all know what I'm talking about, and that's theory of operation, okay? I mean, we don't need to be engineers or scientists or anything like that to figure out how intermediate gearbox, how we build and design one of those things for the H-64. But we do need to have a level of confidence that our young soldiers or our mechanics understand what that gearbox does. I mean, that's a pretty simple idea or simplistic analogy that I'm using, but we've got to get to that level of fidelity. And the other thing I talk to your guys about is when I see them is about making progression a competition, okay? And when I say competition, that competition can be anything within your platoon. So do you guys put your PT scores up for public knowledge in your platoon office? I mean, I'm not asking for any show of hands or not. Do you put your weapon scores up there? Do you put your warrior battle test scores up there? When you start making things a competition within your organization, no one wants to be last. Not even your substandard soldier. So when they see a 181 or 195 compared to a 295, no one wants to be last, okay? So if there's trophies to be handed out, they don't have to be material in nature. They can be right up here in your mind. So when soldiers see that they're not up to par with their fellow soldiers, they will want to do better. So creating a competitive environment within the organization, specifically when it comes to maintenance. And when I talk about maintenance and I talk about that competitive thing, there's no reason why you can't put whatever maintenance metrics you want to put up within your company for public knowledge. Maybe you develop a written test or a hands-on test, component ID. Maybe it's a test that you do every Friday for general aviation knowledge. All I know is that we've got to start doing something to get that competitive nature back into the companies, into the organizations, to develop that culture of wanting to learn. The AMTP program will get after some of that because it's going to be regulatory and guidance, meaning you're going to have to do it. And you're going to have to follow it, and you're going to have to progress your personnel within the program, just like we do in our rated crew member program and our non-rated crew member program. Again, this is not an AMTP program. We are not quite ready to flash that out to the public at this time. But I will tell you, I just sat down Monday with Lieutenant Colonel Banford, who is the OIC of the program. And between him and myself, we go back and forth on what this thing's going to look like. And I think right now we've got a pretty good, solid foundation. The one thing that this program is going to do, and that's all I'm going to say about it, is the soldier is going to have to take the initiative to progress. And if they don't progress, please read HADA 52 and 54. If a soldier does not progress within this program or show proficiency in their MOS, they are not going to get recommended to go to the promotion board. They're not going to recommended to go and do other assignments other than what they're allowed to do. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Major Helton. Each board member here is going to talk for 10, 12, 13 minutes. John Martin might talk for 40, so bear with him. But just kind of get their perspective on aviation maintenance, and then we're going to open it up and ask for questions. Thank you.
So I appreciate that, Sergeant Majors. What we decided to do was start left to right, work back to you to close us out. So, Sergeant Major, please.
So, Sergeant Major, thanks for the opportunity to participate in the board. By no means do I have any and all answers. We'll caveat that with I don't know everything, as most of us do. But from the 25th Cab's perspective and where we stand maintenance-wise, we strive out there. It's not, I know contrary to everybody's belief, we're not just out there drinking Mai Tais and hanging out on the beach. And those of you who've been out there, it's a great place to be. But we are busy. One of the biggest struggles that I deal with on a constant basis, especially with senior leaders that I have coming into the organization, is they want to know when we're on a patch chart. And 25th Cab is not on a patch chart. So that may be contrary to a lot of you guys thinking we're not pulling our weight, not being on a patch chart. But I would tell you that we're hugely busy out there, as well as each and every cab and organization out here represented this morning. And hugely busy in what we're doing across the Pacific and committed to that AOR. And then as Korea Peninsula gets more heated and becomes more contentious, of course, rumors continue to fly and become abundant that the 25th Infantry Division and the CAB will participate in that should there be a need for that. So what we consistently talk with our soldiers about, especially our mid-grade maintainers about, in doing things decentralized across the Pacific AOR that's challenging, is our readiness, our rehearsals, our recon, relationships. We build those 4 R's, and then we say, show, sell, and support to our partner nations out there in the Pacific AOR. And in some cases, some of our SMEs that we're sending out down to a sergeant or staff sergeant level NCOIC. So for years, it's been, I think we have a problem in Army aviation with what I call rank creep. And in sending out, and I'll use an example, as a junior sergeant in 1994-5, took 2 UH-60s, went to Kuwait for an exercise over there for 90 days or whatever it was called back then, Bright Star or something like that. And I was the senior NCO that was for that task force, for those 2 aircraft that went. Couple of pilots, MTP, TI, myself, and another crew chief. Well, this rank creep that I'm talking about maintenance-wise that we're seeing, I think, across aviation is we've got in such a big hurry that we haven't coached, teach, and mentored our mid-grade NCOs, the sergeants and staff sergeants, to be able to do that. So now we think we got to send 2 aircraft out, and at a minimum, there's probably got to be a captain, maybe a major, a platoon sergeant, a sergeant first class, maybe a first sergeant with him to be able to get this done. So what we've attempted to do in 25th CAB is we're attempting to get away from that and push down to the staff sergeant, sergeant level, platoon leader level, where those guys and gals can make some honest mistakes, but then gain the experience in making some learning mistakes on their own to be able to go to all these second and third order Pacific AOR countries that we deal with and work. So then they're learning by experience. So I think we've lost that a little bit. So we're working real hard at that. And as an example, just in FY17, we've counted up 25th CAB will do approximately 39 strategic air and sea moves off the island of Oahu. 39 over the fiscal year, which is huge. So we think about everybody doing stuff and where you're going and what you're doing. I mean, think internally of your own organizations and where you're at. Are you conducting 39 strategic air or sea moves in a fiscal year? That's a pretty significant number of reps that our non-commissioned officers and mid-grade warrant officers and junior officers are getting. So I share that because in exporting talent, hopefully we get the folks back. You get the NCOs back off a 3-year DEROS assignment to Hawaii, and they've done, in the course of 36 months, a couple of Pacific pathways, rotations to different islands, different countries, a number of PTA rotations to the Big Island for gunnery, and then these 39 in a fiscal year strategic and sea moves to come back then into your organization better equipped, strategically set with a knowledge and skill set that then you can assess in their training and where they're at, put them in a position that you can trust they can accomplish the maintenance correctly. As an example, in January, February this year, our AH-64s that are not to FOC yet, make that clearly a button because it's a nice shiny object in the Pacific. Now everybody's got AH-64s are out there, and it's a big selling ticket item out there and stuff, so everybody wants to use them. But in January and February, we had AH-64s on Oahu, PTA, JRTC, NTC, Thailand, Korea, Alaska, and JBLM, all in 60 days in those 8 locations. That's not to include, some of those packages obviously include 64s, 60s, 47s, and HHs as well, some of those packages. So significantly challenged in that. So we look at that and the tool sets alone, but then the people and decentralizing the people. So then comes one of our, I wouldn't say a big tagline, but one of our big endeavors that we preach and talk with our non-commissioned officers about is the trust, and trusting them at each of those locations at a junior level, a sergeant or staff sergeant in some cases, with the maintenance for those aircrafts and the task forces. So it builds on their ability to then become experienced. Now, I think we have our own set of challenges too. As an example, I had a staff sergeant talking with one of my battalion sergeant majors to air some dirty laundry. So I've got a sergeant first class that's filling a maintenance platoon sergeant position who is chomping at the bit to go down to a line company. Well, you're in a maintenance platoon sergeant position in a maintenance company. Why are you chomping at a bit to go to the line company to be a platoon sergeant? I start to peel the onion back with the sergeant major, and we find out that, I'm looking at the ERB, 15 Tango MOS, spent a lot of time in a line company flying up through staff sergeant, got picked for 128, right? He had to go out there and he does his time up there at Fort Eustis, gets selected for sergeant first class, comes back, and we stick him into the platoon sergeant job in the maintenance company. Well, come to find out, he doesn't have the experience, skill set that we think is required at that platoon sergeant level because of where he's been the last few years and what he's been doing. So he's been in a crew chief position, then to 128 up there teaching at the schoolhouse, and then back to us as a sergeant first class. And we admittedly mismanaged him, which is a whole other conversation I had with the battalion sergeant major, because we probably shouldn't put him into the platoon sergeant spot in the maintenance company right away. But it goes back to some of where our shortages are across the line too. So where are you going to assume risk at with a staff sergeant and a platoon sergeant job? In the maintenance platoon or in the line company, right? We all manage those folks, so you assume risk in the line company, you put a staff sergeant up there, and the sergeant first class goes to maintenance. But he's chomping at the bit because it's hard on him. So it's a hard job, so he wants to go to his comfort zone and what he knows, which is in the line company. So we're struggling with some of that across the board maintenance-wise. Some of the TTPs that I'm attempting to use and implement out there, to talk quickly about a TTP that's worked relatively well for me, is the 15 Papa Zulu merger. And love my operations guys, love my maintainers. I don't really care what you are as long as you can do the job. So in the cab out there, hey, you're doing the job, great, do the job. But to effect it, I think we've got to start that merger earlier. So we've got to start both with our maintainers and with our operations folks and start that movement to them understanding maintenance if they're a Papa and understanding operations if they're a maintainer earlier in their careers. So what I've done is, to great effect, I have a 15 Papa platoon sergeant down in a line company, an assault line company. He's doing great shit and absolutely killing it, knocking out of the box down there. I have a couple of 15 Papas and a couple of 15 Tangos that have swapped out in the maintenance arena. So I have 2 phase teams, one with each of 15 Papa on it, and they're being over-shoulder watched at a very detailed level, obviously, but in an attempt to get them to understand the maintenance before they become a master sergeant, they're expected to manage it at a first sergeant or a battalion sergeant major level. And the same thing with the Tangos. Pulled a couple Tangos up to the Brigade S3 shop and let them learn operations stuff, put them behind the computers up there and stuff. So it's a great effect, having a great effect at that. I would share that it's got to be the right individuals, though, obviously, and where you pull and put them at for the management of them. But it works. I think technology, one of the things we're struggling with out there, and I habitually find when I walk the flight line is our logbooks. I consistently have young men and young women working on an aircraft without a logbook. And when we have an incident, whether it's a FOD incident or a maintenance incident, we peel the onion back, we come to find out the logbook wasn't actually there with them when it comes down to it. So when you ask about that, you peel the onion back on it, you find out, well, it doesn't turn on, it doesn't work unless it's plugged in. So it's plugged in the office, of course, that's great, but it's not out on the aircraft when they're out in a hangar out on the flight line doing maintenance with them. So we're trying to do everything to attack that, new logbooks, turning in stuff, buying things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we're struggling as a branch when it comes to maintaining, in ensuring that they have the book out there and they're using the book to great effect when they're doing it. At least in our cab, I'm struggling with that, and have seen it in peeling the onion back on some of the mishaps and problems we've had. So we work through that. I agree wholeheartedly with Sergeant Major Chambers in the fact that I think we're great at replacing components and not very good at troubleshooting at all anymore. We've got young men and young women that don't know how to do that. I think because they don't know how to do that, we haven't taught them that, then there's second, third order effects. We're increasing, obviously, cost across the enterprise because we're not troubleshooting the parts right. We're just replacing components and throwing parts at it. And as we fiscally constrain our resources, that becomes an issue, obviously. The maintenance time, I have a bunch of folks I habitually catch either walking, and I'm cursed with a shopette right across the street from my hangars. So I'm consistently catching folks, as I'm running PT or finishing up PT at 7:10, 7:15, so going on 7:30, they're coming back from the shopette, in their uniform with their goodie bag of stuff, and they were in at 6:30 to do, to work on the face. Well, as well as I do, from 6:30 to when they come back from the shopette, they haven't done a lot, and they're going to come back from the shopette, smoke a cigarette, and eat a goodie bear and everything else. So they may get started by 8 o'clock. So we have these folks that aren't ready to troubleshoot aircraft, to look at how things are supposed to be done, and then take the disciplined initiative to get started that we're struggling with. So we're entrusting them and getting sergeants and staff sergeants to lead some of these small units across the Pacific. We're attempting to give them the ability to engage and make decisions to start maintenance earlier rather than later. And then the last part of the troubleshooting is just the profession, that we're losing the profession in troubleshooting and not being able to do that, and being a professional maintainer in what we're doing, just being a component repairer or replacer. Talked rank creep already. Our expeditionary mindset. So I asked our MTPs across the cab, and I think our hidden resources is in our maintenance test pilots. And Chief Horner, our Command Chief Warrant Officer, 25th Cab, is very supportive of it. We've gotten such a big hurry over the last 15, 16 years that where I learned some of my troubleshooting at coming out of the schoolhouse from the MTPs, we got in such a hurry that they just weren't able to teach over the last 15 years. So they lost the ability to do that. So I've gone back and asked specifically our MTPs to help me coach, teach, and mentor, because we've asked some of our first sergeants, some of those guys and gals, the sergeant first classes to some extent, to do so much more than I ever had to do as a platoon sergeant or a first sergeant. They're worried about, and he's not in here someplace, but I get the emails on ACT sponsorship, and I got to then drill down and get somebody to fill out block 3 of the sponsorship form so they can ship out of AIT. Well, what does that do when I have to do that? It pulls a platoon sergeant off the flight line. It pulls a sergeant off the flight line because somebody's got to go put their thumb on somebody and tell them, hey, you got to fill out block 3 of the sponsorship form so that Snuffy can get their orders out of AIT and come to us, because I got the nasty email about it. So I think we're not focused 100% on the maintenance piece, and it's through no fault of our own sergeants or our own branch. I think Big Army has got to help us get after some of that and alleviate some of those second, third order effects that we have that are pulling our NCOs off the flight line, because they're more worried about, and I got a readiness number 1 priority, absolutely. And we assume risk, and leaders assume risk. But when we're putting up slides and the chiclets are red and yellow and amber, and general officers are asking questions about stuff and objective T and where you're at and everything else, when slides got to get done and folks got to do things, they're not then on the flight line, coach, teach, and mentoring. So we're significantly struggling with that to some effect sometimes. But we work hard at attempting to get it. I think the time and grade, we talked earlier with the sergeants majors a little bit next door. I think the time and grade, to go back to my initial comment on my sergeant first class that feels it needs to be a flight platoon sergeant. I think we're progressing folks too quickly. Now we have to, because of where we're at in the Army and where we stand, but we're progressing without the appropriate skill set. So we're attempting to model them more appropriately for where they need to be at maintenance wise, in an attempt to get them promoted and where they need to be as a sergeant and then as a staff sergeant. We're not seeing it. So I'll pass off the mic, and then I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. Hopefully spur a little bit of discussion. Again, the 25th Cab, we attempt to get after it. I'm sure we're struggling with much the same that a lot of the other cabs and organizations are struggling with. We break our fair share of stuff and consistently shake my head and rattle my fist about stuff that's stuff we shouldn't be doing, because we ought to know better than doing it. Folks just aren't trained to the standards. So thank you for the time.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Major John Martin, Operations Group, NTC, call sign Outlaw 40. Hey, Sergeant Major, appreciate you asking me to be here. Hey, and he was right. I'll be honest with you, I like to talk. I've been doing this for a minute, and I think in my lifetime I've had the opportunity to learn from some great leaders and be able to pass those tools back out. And I think as leaders, that's what we should do, is share what we've learned My man JT taught me a lot. And then give it back to others. At the National Training Center, by no means am I the way. I'm just a way. I like to share as much as I can because at the end of the day, we want the units that come to the National Training Center to be successful. All right. By no means would I want to see my brothers or sisters, sergeant majors, go to harm's way, not trained. I think that's a travesty of justice. When I went to the National Training Center the first time, back in 93 or 94, they wrote in their book, and you didn't find out what was going on, what was wrong until it was time to leave, when you could have fixed it in the beginning. So what we do is we spend time talking to the sergeant majors, the first sergeants, platoon sergeants, and give them those things that we see, and hopefully they also see it so that they can get ahead of what's going on. I send copious notes to all the sergeants majors that I can. Before they even come to the National Training Center, we try to do VTCs with them 6-9 months out so they know what's going on. Why? Because I'm a realist. I understand that they have competing requirements. I understand that the division and Air Force Com, everybody has a chiclet chart that they want filled out. So the last thing that platoon sergeant and that first sergeant is doing is training their soldiers because we got to get this 350-1 training done. So what's going to suffer is going to be the aviation maintenance. And at the end of the day, what they do at home is what I see when they come to the National Training Center. And so when I talk to Sergeant Major about, desktop or laptop leadership, they're not out there training their soldiers. And so consequently, when they come to the box, their soldiers suffer because those leaders that weren't out there with them at home station, guess where those leaders are not? They're not out there in the box with them getting dirty. They're there, but they're in the tent. But let me caveat by saying that there are some great leaders that are out there doing what they should. They're out there coaching, training, teaching, mentoring, and counseling. So much so, if you don't mind me pointing them out, my very first rotation, Sergeant Major Q was my first victim. And I had to threaten him within an inch of his life, with my God gun that I was going to kill him every day pretty much if he didn't stop teaching soldiers how to do the job. Now, it was a running joke because it was awesome to see a sergeant major out there pounding pickets and teaching his soldiers what right looks like because that's what we're supposed to do. Now, it would have been wrong if he would have allowed his soldiers to do a job and not be out there to see what they were doing. All right. Another thing is great to see those brigade sergeant majors, those BCT sergeant majors come out and spend time with their soldiers and let their soldiers know that they're doing, great things. And I get a chance to talk to them, and they need to know that so that when they see their soldiers know that they're doing the right thing. So one of the issues that we have is that most leaders come to the National Training Center like they're going to the field, not that they're not going to combat. Right? So those platoon sergeants and those first sergeants, PC NCOs, if you're an attack battalion, you're not going to the lift battalion and saying, hey, what special tools do we need? What special parts do we need? What's that PLO? What's that bench stock look like? They come to the National Training Center not prepared. Or we can fix an Apache, or we can fix a Black Hawk, or we can fix a Chinook, but we can't fix all three. And if we can, we didn't bring everything we needed. So for me, that means that we weren't really concerned about that rotation. We were just going to come to the National Training Center to just survive, for 19 days. And then we would go home and, go back to doing whatever. But what people fail to realize is when you come to a CTC, you're going to fight a near-peer threat. You're going to fight a near-peer enemy that is moving and breathing. And guess what? The enemy has a vote. So when those soldiers are out there, turning wrenches, doing the best that they can, guess what happens? The enemy happens. But guess what's not out there? The leadership to tell them what's next. And so that's what I see. And so when I talk to the sergeants majors or to the first sergeant platoon sergeants, I let them know you need to be out there when your soldiers are turning wrenches and the enemy comes up on them, because most of them have never been to combat. They don't know what to do, because we haven't trained them to do what's next, all right? And the reason why we haven't trained them is because, we're spending a lot of time in the office. Now, my brothers...
So I'm just going to elaborate real quick from the CAB perspective and what I see, so we get a discussion a little bit going and stuff. To Sergeant Major's point is, I think that's a product of what we've been doing. I mean, those platoon sergeants now were sergeants and staff sergeants growing up over the last X number of years, and what'd they do? They got off a plane in Jalalabad or Taji or Bagram or wherever, got keys to a one-bedroom apartment, that had all their PLL and all their bench stock and all their equipment there and everything else, and they didn't have to think through that piece. So we're struggling from my perspective at the CAV level, to elaborate on it a little bit. I'm just struggling with teaching that. I only have so many. I have first sergeants that don't know that because they were staff sergeants when this all kicked off. Now they're first sergeants. Some of them probably sergeants and now first sergeants. And they're struggling with, I need to know that to task force org like that. So that expeditionary mindset that a CTC requires with a near-peer threat, we're absolutely struggling across Army Aviation with. I mean, we just can't think it through. And as an example, I'll share, we had a UH-60 chip out of main mod at PTA. Those of you who've been to Hawaii before, it's about an hour and a half flight PTA from from Oahu. We had a main mod chip out there. And the first thing all the leadership wanted to do was sling load that aircraft down the hill from PTA, from the range complex, down the hill to Kona to put it on a C-17 to bring it back. They did absolutely no discussion about, well, why can't we pull the 5-pack out there, put it in the back of a Chinook, bring it back to Oahu, do the QA/QC, build it up, put it all back together, put it in the back of a Chinook, take it back over there, put it back on the aircraft, put it all back together, rig it, test flight, everything else, and not risk damaging the airplane and slinging it down the hill. Because in all my years of experience, it's always ended poorly for an airframe that was functional at the time. So I brought that to their attention, and we ended up doing that. But again, it takes the brigade sergeant major because I'm the guy with that knowledge set in doing that stuff. So we are struggling, to Sergeant Major's point with that.
So early, so Sergeant Major hit something that, I like to talk to leaders about, and that's learning to lead from a position of discomfort. We always go to things that is comfortable to us. And when I talk to the platoon sergeants, that's where they like to be at. They want to be in the flight company. I spent time as a flight company first sergeant, and that's where everybody wants to go. They want to go to the flight company because it's easy. They don't want to go to the maintenance company where you have to do work. And so at the CTCs, there are three things that mess most people up. And it doesn't matter because at the operations group now, I get a chance to spend time with the BCT, not just the aviation, but I'm out there with, the FA guys. I'm out there with the Bradley guys and the tankers. I'm walking on the ground with the infantry guys. I'm with the mortar teams because I want to know if everyone across the Army struggles at the same things. And the answer to that question is yes. It's crazy what I've had the opportunity to see. But I think what has happened, and this is just my opinion and my opinion only, is that because we've been at war and we've allowed other people to do things for us, we've gotten away from the simple things. We don't task organize quick enough, especially on the aviation side. We borrow people. Like right now, there's a rotation that started on Monday from 1st Infantry Division, but the aviation asset came from Fort Bliss. So the question is, how much time did they spend together in the field before they even came to the National Training Center? And was the National Training Center the first time that the entire task force got together? Does it matter? Does it make a difference? It does. And the reason why it makes a difference is because I've been there for 18, 19 months, and I can tell you that we've probably successfully done maybe one rotation where we did a ring route every day. And that's because the BCT does not know how to use aviation. You know why they don't know how to use aviation? Because aviation doesn't know how to use aviation. Because we don't know how to sell ourselves. When you have a task force commander show up to a car and he's late, what did you just tell that BCT commander? That I don't need aviation. I'm going to get in my Stryker, I'm going to get in my tank or my Bradley, and I'm rolling out because aviation is going to be late anyway. And that's what I've seen over my time. I'm not making it up. That's what I've seen. Or when you come in and you dust out everybody because you want to show everybody that you can fly in a helicopter, you really are not doing a great thing for Army aviation. And so that attitude kind of trickles down where, hey, I don't need to be out there with my soldiers. I think they know what's going on, and I'm just going to let them do what they do. So I'm going to give my time up the rest of the time because to me, I'm passionate about this. I love what I'm doing. I love the uniform. It's important. I want to see folks come out to the National Training Center. I want them to succeed. Here's my copious notes right here. And every day I work these notes. These are my notes. I've worked them, and I give them out freely. Let me say this, 2 things. 1, I do not think that the battalion sergeant majors are coming back home and sitting down with the brigade sergeant major and telling them what they did or did not do at the National Training Center. I don't think it's happening. I also don't think that our brothers are sharing their lessons learned from their rotation with those that are coming out there, because we continue, the observations are the same. We don't use bad words like trends. That's a bad word. But it's an observation, all right? They're not sharing that information because I guess maybe they don't want to see everybody succeed. But what I want to see is I want to see Black Horse get smoked. That's what I want to see, because that means we trained. That means that we are proficient in our warrior task and drills, that we can fix helicopters, that we can launch, recover launch, and protect ourselves at the same time, which, oh, by the way, we struggle with because we think we need the infantry or some artillery dudes or some tankers or somebody else to come out there to protect the aviation TAA because we can't time manage. We don't know talent management. We don't understand people management. And the last thing is this. So we developed, and I don't like to kill people with PowerPoints. I have to do a senior NCO AAR with all the sergeants majors from the BCT, the first sergeants, platoon sergeants. We do a senior NCO AAR on training day 4. We used to do it on training day 8, but when you go in a live fire on training day 10, you really don't have a lot of time to fix those deficiencies. I'm the mirror that I want them to see. I want them to see what I see. So we pushed it to training day 4, and what that's given us is 2 battle periods in order for them to fix things, and which has worked out. It's worked out perfectly. All right, but a product that myself and Sergeant Major Rebuck and some of the other sergeant majors have developed is 5 slides, and what we're trying to get people to understand, NCOs to understand, is let's talk casualty evacuation, because that's the platoon sergeant, first sergeant major business, right? It's not the officer business, that's our business. But we have to get people to understand that things happen in a continuum. It's not just from point of injury to row 1 or point of injury to the AXP. It's point of injury to RTD. It should be important to me that that soldier that gets injured gets back into the fight. That's no different than if I hand out a 5988, I should be worried about that piece of equipment becoming FMC. Not, oh, I got the 5988, I hand out 1,500 of them, and at the end of the day, I get 500 back. That means that somewhere along the line, someone's not concerned, and that's why we have PMC or NMC equipment, because leaders are not involved. It's no different. And I would be available for questions afterwards.
As will we all. Hey, it's my name's Steve Helton. I'm the RSOAC CSM. I'll tell you, I know most of you, and I look out and I'm humbled sitting up here because I'm not really sure what it is that I have to offer from this perspective. And really, what I was hoping for is there would be more cross discussion and questions. And maybe we haven't set it up the right way, so my fault. But what I will do is, one, I'll highlight my brothers to my left here, and that's a perfect example of the focus and understanding at the appropriate echelon of what's going on in the force, both from an operational cab, from the training center, and now what I'll probably end up doing is, because I feel a little disconnected after hearing the specificity with which they talk, is pull out a little bit and just talk a little more broadly about some of the ways that I've observed, I guess both the cabs and the soft force, and how we've maybe gone about culturally solving some of these problems, how we're doing it now, and maybe how we've done it in the past. So for me, I feel like I'm sort of in both camps. I spent half of my career with the 160th as a more junior non-commissioned officer, and then my time as a senior non-commissioned officer, the majority of which has been with the conventional aviation force. So it's an interesting perspective with which I think I look at these problems. Sergeant Major Chambers hit on something that I think is really the top line thing, and that is the culture and focus. Maybe that's two separate things, but I tend to hone in on an organization and start to think about what the challenges might be based off the culture of the organization. And I think that as sergeant majors, we are the agents of change that have to get after the culture and adapt the focus to the right thing within our commander's guidance and messaging structure and what's coming out of the aviation branch and out of Force Com and the Army. But I think that I agree almost 100% that there is some cultural challenge with regard to how we train aviation maintainers. What I would offer from an RSOA perspective is simply, the first and the last letter of that acronym is Army and Aviation, and that is RSOA is Army Aviation. We come from Army Aviation from our beginnings. We recruit from Army Aviation, and we work with Army Aviation in every facet, whether it's deployed or in garrison. That being said, I think that there are some ways in which the RSOA enterprise goes about solving some problems that I hope are shared and beneficial across the aviation enterprise. So the similar challenges, that's a given. We have, I believe, the sergeant majors who are all here, by the way, and I hope we'll weigh in with some specificity here when you get the chance. I know Will's chomping at the bit looking for a whiteboard, and we'll square you away. Sorry, had to throw that out there. But what I hope they'll tell you and what I've observed is that it's not magic. They know it. They haven't solved all these challenges and probably don't have absolute concrete, hey, this is the way we fix that, because I think we struggle with many of the same or at least similar problem sets. What I will say is they invest leadership energy into clearly codifying and enforcing standards from an aviation maintenance training perspective. So they establish, it's not universal yet. We're working on that, and I encourage every one of you to spend some time with Sergeant Major Koquat and talk to him about aviation maintenance training program as a system. But within each battalion and within each maintenance company, they've done a good job of leveraging already existing training paradigms, the progression paradigms, to have a framework to establish maintenance training programs at probably company and platoon levels, which tend to build a maintainer that has been trained, has been validated, has been operationally employed, and therefore comes out the other end with the requisite amount of trust and credibility that you can send him or her downrange as an NCOIC of a package at a relatively lower pay grade than you might think, and he or she will be able to operate in an austere environment, in a complex operational environment, and successfully execute the missions for limited duration. So there's some ways that the RSOA enterprise does things that are different in order to solve similar problems. But at the end of the day, it really comes back down, in my opinion, to empowerment and trust of our subordinate or junior non-commissioned officers and leaders. So you've got to establish something, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we got to fight with what we got. That's sort of my saying. Going back to when I was the CAB CSM, I understood that I wasn't going to have everything I needed. You're not going to have everything you need. We know that we're not going to have everything we need. I think our SOA, as an enterprise, the ground, air, all of it, understands that because you have requirements for selections and assessments and those kinds of things, you'll always be short. You're never going to be 100%. So you got to accept that at the operational level, tactical level, you're going to fight with what you got, and then invest in whatever is important to you and your commander with regard to training requirements, and invest heavily in foundational skills that build into those end states. And not necessarily the exact thing, like, being able to evacuate a downed helicopter, but maybe the skill sets that are foundational to being able to accomplish that mission. I mean, each cab is different, each commander is different, but there are ways to get after those problems in a creative way. What I also think is a relevant observation is the empowerment mindset that allows junior leaders to think creatively about problem solving. Sort of hit on that. And what I think I've seen is there's a definitive link between the authorities that somebody wields or has and the decisions that they can make to the level that is appropriate with regard to who has got the most information. So that's just a really complex way of saying power it down. We talk about powering it down, but what it ends up being is small teams of skilled, trained, non-commissioned officers, operators, whatever you want to call them, out there with the right skill sets, the right training, the right level of empowerment in order to make decisions on the fly, to solve problems with the right information, because that's where that information resides usually, is at the point of friction. We have some authorities with regard to acquisition tools that we have that allow us to move a little bit more rapidly on some things, and accept that our ability in our SOA to move rapidly on some things is also a matter of scale. But I think what we seek to do is to get out ahead of problems, to find real material solutions for things, invest in them, validate them, incorporate them, and then share them with the rest of the force. That's what we seek to do from my lens. And what I think is also interesting and relevant is our senior leaders in our SOA, I think, do a good job of taking very abstract things. So for me, I sit at a level where I see a lot of colors, numbers, graphs, charts. That's all abstract shit. That doesn't, excuse my language, apologize. That's abstract stuff that doesn't always paint the right picture. And what these guys do a great job of, and the first sergeants, is making the abstract real. So when I get out and I visit, they show me what the real deal is and help me understand what the impacts of the decisions that are being made have on the force. So I would encourage you to also take every advantage. Some of us have talked about that today, to help do that. That's really it for my notes. I hope that was helpful and relevant. I will offer that each one of these battalion CSMs and the regimental CSM who are sitting on the row there have, I know they do very specific examples of techniques and best practices with regard specifically to aviation maintenance training that they would be happy to share with you. And I will hope that we will be able to get some discussion going here amongst the audience and really amongst us, all of us, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, hey, we'll open it up for questions. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for your candid and very open reflections as far as when we're talking about aviation maintenance. Hey, yesterday I had a great, very good conversation with a man that's here in the room right now. Well, two of them are here, and then a civilian about how our battalion commanders rate their maintenance company commanders. So, all you battalion CSMs, maybe tonight when you're having a beverage of choice, if your battalion commander's here, hey, ask him how he rates his maintenance company commander compared to his flight company commanders or his HHC. Is it he's going to get a top block because his OR rate was really high. They completed all the phases that they were required to do in accordance with your flying hour program. And then I would ask yourself or ask the battalion commander, how do you rate that company first sergeant? What are the metrics you use to rate that Delta company or that B company first sergeant? Is it how well the OR rate is, or how many phases you all did, or the thousands of man-hour of unscheduled inspections you did, whatever? Because we tend to get wrapped around these really things that are easy to equate to justify excellences. But, you know, we just got done talking about maintenance. Maybe you ought to rate that company commander, that first sergeant on how many RO1, for lack of better words, maintainers you have, or what the proficiency is within your within that maintenance company. I'm not going to talk about flight companies because flight companies, just like Sergeant Major Houck said, they're pretty easy to run and be in, and they're fun, and you know your level of responsibility is kind of low. Don't take offense to that. I'm just being facetious, but working in maintenance is a tough job. Working in maintenance is even tougher when you don't know what you're doing. Okay, maintenance can even be harder when you place easy justifications to show the success of your company. So it asks, as you go back to your units and you look at those maintenance company commanders and first sergeants and platoon sergeants, what are you really rating them on when it comes to their evaluations? I got it. They're building combat power because they're doing phases, okay? But are they building professional personnel power? Because really, at the end of the day, to work in a decentralized operation, whether it's in the box in NTC or if you're in OAR or in Afghanistan, that's what we need. I mean, a helicopter is not going to fly without people, either maintaining it or flying it. So it asks that, you know, look, just ask your commander, how would that maintenance company commander get a top block? How does that maintenance company first sergeant get a most qualified? All right. Hey, just 5 quick things, and we're going to open up for questions, some of the notes that I took from all 3 of them. Hey, one thing that we are terrible at as a branch is transferring all that experience from one cab to another. And again, we talked about at lunch as we referred to the STEP process, is we are continually, as an Army, reassess soldiers, okay? And I don't want to beat up the STEP thing. You guys already heard that at lunchtime. But we do a terrible job when it comes to the experience that Marty Book, young Specialist Marty Book, gets in the 4th cab, and we move him to the 82nd cab, and he gets into Sergeant Q's platoon, and Sergeant Q's got to assess him for 90 to 120 days. He really sits. So really what that tells me as a branch CSM is that Sergeant Q really doesn't trust Specialist Book's platoon sergeant. And he probably doesn't trust him because we have no continuity other than what? There's only 2 documents, usually, that follow Specialist Book to his new assignment. Can anyone name what those are? Your NCOER and an award. Okay? And we know how we write NCOER. I mean, we are not going to write terrible things on a 638 if we want to give Specialist Book and ARCOM. We're going to write good things, okay? So just think about that for a second. And we do not have a way to how to track our maintenance progression or the proficiency or how proficient one individual is. Kind of goes back to bullet 1. We don't share our lessons learned or observations like John had pointed out. And I'm sure that Sergeant Major Arsenault and Jimmy Etheridge could say the same. Maybe you all do, and we just don't know it. Maybe you got a clandestine network that you all lesson learned, observation seen, and maybe we're all wrong. But it's, again, my perception, and maybe it is reality that we're not sharing that. And just for your information, like I told you a couple months ago, so myself and the 4 CTC Sergeant Majors are all in the same email now, and we will start talking a lot more, and I will start sending those observations out minus unit names and rotation dates. You know, the one thing that Sergeant Major Martin said was about the PC NCO not doing the proper pre-combat checks or the pre-combat inspections prior to going into the box. I mean, come on, gentlemen, ladies. It's not like they tell us on Friday afternoon we're going to NTC, and then next Friday we're going to NTC, okay? I mean, we know well in advance when we're going to do an NTC rotation, a JRTC rotation, or when we're going to go on a named operation or a rotation. When we show up to NTC ill-prepared, not have the right tools, the equipment, the parts or whatnot, I mean, we're a lot better than that. So I'd ask you to look at that. And then, Brian, your message is heard loud and clear. It's something I talk about all the time when it comes to the big Army admin requirements. I'm not going to say they're ridiculous because, quite frankly, our elected leadership and our senior leaders in the military said that that's what they want us to do. But quite frankly, excuse me, we're at that point because some of us in this room, probably all of us at some time, blew off requirements that we were required to do a long time ago. So the Army put a system in place to ensure that it would happen. Because at the end of the day, why do we do those requirements? It's to take care of our young soldiers. And again, at the end of the day, we can take care of ourselves. But that precious raw commodity we have, that's what we got to take care of, and that's why those systems are in place. But I will say, like I said at lunch, you guys get paid to prioritize those priorities. So gaining rank as a senior NCO doesn't mean that you get to leave earlier. In fact, it means you got to work harder, and you got to stay at work longer. You should not be the last in and the first out. You should be the first in and last out. And I would ask, again, that goes back to doing those terrain walks to see who's around at 1710 at night. All right, so I think we're all done talking up here. I'd really like to open it up for questions and get your thoughts on anything that we've talked about up here. And before I forget, thank you very much for coming.
So, you had spoke about the need to start taking from the cabs extra NCOs for the training pipeline. HRC has now started the call to active duty program, but it's focused on the O's and the WOs. I've seen nothing coming for the NCOs. Now, the 108th Training Command out of the Army Reserve has been tasked to mobilize 8 BCT companies to help with the basic training aspect. But if you need instructors at your AITs, I'm sure we can find some individuals in the Army Reserve to come and be your instructors for the aviation slice.
Yeah, so like I've told everyone before, I'm not real smart on the personnel issues. The person who's really smart on that sits right behind you. So I'm assuming that there's mobilization rules we have to follow if they're going to stay as a reserve or National Guard soldier. But when we talk about call to active duty for officers and warrant officers, that's exactly what it is. They're coming to serve active duty for a term of service. Right. Okay. I don't know if we have the resources to mobilize people or soldiers to come and work. It's absolutely something we could potentially look at, but again, I'm not the person to ask. And Colonel Steele, you're more than welcome to expand on that comment.
Sorry, Major, so that's something we brought up to the HRC channel to request to TRADOC. TRADOC's got to request us. If they don't have the personnel, we can't fill the tracks. And,
Sitting back here and just got 1801's additional requirements for more instructors that I can see we're probably not going to be able to fill. But some of the things that we've sent back as a request or rebuttal or, beg, more or less, is can we use the reservists? Or can we use the National Guard during, an AT window and then adding all their drill days onto it to be able to use them for an entire a class. Unfortunately, most of those classes are going to go longer than what their normal year annual training would be for them along with their drill days. But we're not getting a lot of good answers. So I don't know. I'm not that smart, Sergeant Major, so thanks for thinking I am. But
so is the call to active duty program off limits for enlisted soldiers?
It's not something we're doing on the enlisted side. I don't know what the legal ramifications are, but like Sergeant Major said, it's not called active duty and then you go back to the reserve. They are coming back on active duty and staying on active duty. They are now getting RA commissions.
See, that's not what's being put out on the Compo 3 side of the house. the initiative to entice people is to go for 2, 3, 4 years to the AC side, but then you're coming back to the Army Reserve.
Right. So I don't work OP, and I will tell you that one thing I have learned is that OPMD and EPMD are two very, very different animals. Sometimes frustratingly so. So, but we are not looking at that right now, and we're looking more at the retention and the accessions piece. Obviously, more on the accessions. I mean, we're still sitting right now with 5,000 soldiers available to reenlist that aren't reenlisting, that we need to get reenlisted. We're 5,000 short on our retention piece. So if we can meet our own goals, we should be able to get to where we need to be at the end.
And I only bring that up, Sergeant Major, because if you've looked at our OR numbers, Chinooks alone are 84%. And that's the highest across all 3 compos. And a lot of that's because we've got subject matter experts in our ASFs that do it on a daily basis as our MilTechs, and then bring that skill set back to the green suit side. So our capabilities on the maintenance side are multiplied by 2 when you look at that aspect. So we have resources that may be available to you guys to help alleviate some of that stress.
So I would share just internally, so the 25th, and we're probably, some of this pain that we're dealing with the staff sergeants is internally driven. So I'm consistently having to look at staff sergeants, get an FST for a young man or a young woman that, of course, wants to stay in Hawaii, got some kind of reason why they want to stay for another year or another 2 years, do an IFST or something like that. And inevitably, it's after they're on assignment to the 128th for something. So I'm having to have hard conversations and be the bad guy at the brigade level, and trying to have conversations down to battalion sergeants majors about being the bad guy as well, and saying, hey, look, you got to go do this, and then forcing them off the island to go do that assignment. So I think we internally look within our own formations. We can push some of those guys, and the other piece of it's building the staff sergeants that we need to go do that. I think Army would tell us when you go to ask them that well, you're not building enough, which is why they're threatening to take that away from us anyways. So we got to build enough internally, build our own staff sergeants, grow them, and then put them in the 128th or assign them to these organizations to do those missions that we need. And in not doing that, it's part of the problem that we have. So I think they'd balk at us if we asked them for it in the long run. I mean, it's a great idea and would absolutely help us out, but I think they're gonna say no when it comes down to it, because we just got to do a better job internally of forcing some of the staff sergeants to go do the job, and then building staff sergeants to fill those vacancies down the road.
I just want to take a second to caveat what Sergeant Major Hauk just said. For just as a situational awareness, it's not an Army Aviation number, but there are 18,000 soldiers right now sitting on CLI that could be promoted if we would just send them to the board. So, I know Sergeant Major Chambers has been talking that, but that is a road show program that is talked about by my boss 2 levels up, Colonel Kellogg, and by the HRCCG. So there's a lot of hesitation to look at bigger and broader programs to help us when we're not really helping ourselves too.
I mean, so to talk the maintenance discussion on, I pull each month, I get the by name list for sergeants and staff sergeants. Last month, or a month ago, I had a number of 15 series maintainers make the CLI cutoff, at 14 points to staff sergeant. I'm sure some of the other cabs are that way, So, I mean, if they're making the cutoff CLI to 14 points, is that part of our maintenance problem then? You hope those are the right kids we're promoting, but then there's a reason. So either they haven't been boarded for a reason, hopefully a good reason. You hope it's a good reason they haven't been sent to the board. But then to Sergeant Major's point, we're probably just doing a poor job too. And the kid came from the 82nd, has done bang up work for the 82nd cab, came to me, and now I got a platoon sergeant that decides, or a first sergeant that decides, oh, well, I got to look at this kid for 6 months or 90 days or whatever before we can send him to the board. I'm consistently having that conversation with my mid-grade leaders too about, hey, look, you assess them per task. I mean, when I mentioned earlier assessment, it's assessing them on a task so then you can validate them and trust them to do the task and supervise, right? And that's what we do. If you're going to take an engine out of a UH-60, you give them the task, you assess them doing it, you check on a soldier once per task as a leader at least, and then You watch them take the engine out. They do it to standard. Then hey, you validated them. Now you can trust them to then do that task unsupervised. So next time, you don't even have to assess them. You just send them out to do the task. Hey, take those two guys and go take the engine out of the UH-60 or whatever it is. And we don't do that very well. We're horrible at that stuff. The other thing that I don't think we do very well powering down is we talk about a disciplined initiative within the commander's intent and trusting them to do that. I think where we're not accepting risk is that I got platoon sergeants that aren't willing to prioritize them consistently during NCOPDs with first sergeants and platoon sergeants having conversations about, look, you're paid at that level to assume risk at a certain level. Prioritize your tasks. I mean, if you can't get to whatever it is that day because you need to be out watching them take, the main rotor head off a Chinook because that's the most dangerous or the most important place to be that day, not sitting behind a computer getting an NCR done. I'll take an ass chewing for not having the NCR done that night, but I'll get it done the next day. Or I'll stay a little later or come in a little earlier to do it, which doesn't happen either. I say that to them, and I get this deer in the headlight look like, oh, my God, you want me to come in early or stay late to do stuff? Because leaders think we've gotten in this rhythm where you got in this R4 gen cycle, and giving soldiers time off was taking care of them. So I've got mid-grade leaders, I got platoon sergeants and below that think taking care of soldiers is giving them time off, not accomplishing the mission or to standard. What else?
So I want to throw something on that, if you guys don't mind. So you talked about the discipline initiative. Thanks. So you talk about discipline initiative, and I look at this come from JRTC, looking at you guys' units as they come through. So discipline initiative, one entails that soldiers know what the task condition standards are, and they know the difference between implied and specified tasks. But we assume a lot of times that the soldiers and the leaders know what comes next. And unfortunately, with the skills atrophy that I've seen, they don't know what's next. So when the soldiers basically the leaders are not outside with the soldiers, they're not outside supervising, the soldiers, they don't know what's next. So they'll get to a certain point and they stop. You tell them to dig a foxhole, they'll dig a hole. They don't know that it's supposed to be a foxhole. You tell them to go pull an engine off, and they don't know why. They don't know the theory of operation, so they don't know why they're actually pulling the engine off. And so basically, it's the difference between guard duty and sitting. It's the difference between maintaining an aircraft or pulling a part off, whatever. So just throwing it out there, some of the discipline initiative.
Real quick before I give it to you, Sergeant Major, where I found the problem with that is in the sergeants and staff sergeants and sergeant first classes, even some of the first sergeants, they don't know it, so they're afraid to look bad because they don't know it.
Roger, that's what I was going to get at. So we have to get back into the training portion, and then that's how you get into trusting them. The task condition standards, making sure they're trained and they know the task and what's next. And basically goes back into the why. Why are we doing that? Some of the pride, some of the culture that some of you guys mentioned up there, it's like we call them crew chiefs. Are they a crew chief, or are they simply a maintainer on that aircraft or that truck or whatever? So painting a name on the aircraft, painting the symbols, whatever, basically changing the culture in your organization so that they feel like they're a crew chief, so that they know that, hey, I can't go home today because my aircraft's not up. And it's not a can't. I don't want to go home because my aircraft's not up. I don't want to go back to the tent because this area is not secured. From the JRTC perspective, we'll have soldiers like, oh, my shift is over, and they want to leave. But it's like you haven't been properly relieved. Same as the aircraft. If your aircraft's not up, you haven't been properly relieved, and that's part of the culture. That's just some of my 2 cents to throw out there. So, but you guys have any questions on that, feel free to ask as well. I'd love to talk about this all day. Once you get me going, somebody handed me the mic.
So I used to ask soldiers, hey, why are we in Afghanistan and Iraq? And so more specifically, hey, we're in Afghanistan. Who are the 3 major enemies that we're fighting? Sergeant Major, I think we're going after Osama bin Laden. Okay, that's good. I mean, what organization does he belong to? He belongs to the Taliban. No, not the Taliban. So I know this is a real stupid analogy, but it's to your point when it comes to the troop to task, the troop to leader, to why I'm showing up for work, what is my JOB, is that young leaders for the last 16 years, we have bred an army of, I'm going to tell you where we're going to go, I'm going to tell you what equipment you're going to do, what time you need to bear in what uniform, and what I need you to do while you're there. And they've never been allowed the freedom, as we all were growing up, to make mistakes. And I don't know what it is with today's generation on why they're so afraid to make a mistake, maybe because they won't get a trophy or something. I'm not quite sure. But when it's alarming when you ask a young soldier, what are you doing in Afghanistan, and who are the three primary factions who are trying to kill you on a nightly basis, and they don't know. And I think that's pretty important, because, what do you tell that mom and dad, how come their son or daughter died? When our mid-grade leaders, officers, warrant officers, and even senior NCOs have the slightest idea who we're fighting against. So, to your point is that, again, we've got a bunch of people who do not want to take the initiative to learn how to do their job. And then it becomes very evident in your footprint and yours. It comes evident differently within the cabs on a daily basis, because you see it. That's why I always thought going to NDC or JRTC as a young soldier, or even going into combat, you're focused on doing something, doing your job every single day. And when we're back in garrison, it takes engaged leadership, not desk talk leadership, to make all that happen.
Go ahead, sir. Hi, I'm from Fort Huachuca. I trained the 15 Echoes. So I got a question about the 15 Echo move to Fort Eustis that you mentioned. Is there a timeline when that's going to happen? And is the proponency going to move from 1st Aviation Brigade to the 128 anytime soon?
All right, hey, so just to clarify, not AIT, ALC. Just to clarify, it's not AIT at the 213th. It's ALC at Fort Rucker. It's the only maintenance course at Fort Rucker. We're going to move it up to Eustis with its other brothers and sister maintainer, ALC. Nope, ALC. Advanced Leaders Course.
Okay, the way I look at it, rank does not give you experience. So promoting a soldier from E5 to E6 is not going to make that guy a better maintenance guy. Where I think we fail is that we get rushed to taking, we need crew chiefs, but we also need maintainers. But because we need that crew chief, we put them over there, and we never give them the opportunity to be a maintainer. So, I ran a ASB for a while, and the only way one of my maintainer went to be a crew chief was if he was my best crew chief. And what I did for the flight line, I told him, hey, I'm giving you quality, my best guy, and then in return, what they did, they gave me the shittiest guy that didn't do shit. So, so we failed each other doing that. And then I know that this is not happening. If I'm a TI and I want to, and like I said, I want to encourage maintenance, good maintenance, I go to the soldier, hey, and he's coming to me to tell me, hey, could you inspect this? So I'm going to tell, hey, what you did. Talk me through the process of what you did. And during that process that he's talking, you tell him, hey, this is why you're doing this. This is why you took this out this way. This is why you're twerking this. And we got people that could train, help each other out, but we're not using that capability. Same thing with the TI, who's his evaluator. He could have that test pilot could troubleshoot him as well, make him a better person. But if we don't do stuff like that, we're not going to get nowhere. And then another topic that we get into is that all these divisions pounding you guys with all these details and all that. You need to start doing a red, amber, green cycles, so you could tell, hey, this is my time of training. So when it's time for you to train those tasks that your battalions, your companies, and your brigade got to do at their level, they're already sheltered because you put it on your training schedule, and that way they can't task you accordingly. And then we need to educate the regular population to understand, because an infantry guy won't know that, how we operate. And like I was talking to Q about, and he said, they don't understand that if I have only one avionics guy and he's got to go to school and we're in combat, you can't pull them out because there's nobody else that could do that job. It's not like you could OJT and all that. And I think we should go back to OJT and also that this guy should be able to do his job, even though they're a little bit different. Because when I was a TI, I was in Hawaii the first time. I was a TI for all the airframes, and we learned. And what they did, and they abused me and this other guy because if they were going to go somewhere, instead of taking 4 different TIs, they'll take me or another guy, and we could do all the aircraft. So there's a solution for a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with right now. And I like the idea about competition because it does competition. If you're a crew chief and you never have your name on the aircraft, it's bogus. You're like, golly, why am I fixing it? Because I don't even have my name on my aircraft. Little steps like that helps you out in doing a lot of stuff. We had our 1-3 ARB. They went ahead to the field and they went ahead and they were doing a phase and they continued the phase in the field. And yeah, they noticed that we needed more, equipment, this and that. But that's the way that you train your whole brigade or your aviation asset. But it starts from the bottom. And then also. Those TIs usually, I had at one time when I was the QC guy, I had all my TIs, they put their desks outside in the hangar because these suckers, they'll be on the computer doing this and then soldiers be waiting in the window for TI to come out because I said, no, so your ass is going to be out there and you could talk through and so on. And then simple stuff as having a butcher board with the process, okay, this is your face, the tobo, and then the guy goes and sign it off, and you get a quote. I say, you guys get to meet this and do this. And then in order to create talent, you got to rotate talent. If you always depend on the same guy every damn time, you're not going to create additional talent. So get that guy and let somebody else fill in the slot and make them a lot better and create that same talent. So,
Thanks, Oz. Great comments, everything. Hey, it's 15:08. And before, if you guys got places to go, please. But I just want to afford the chance. I know Sergeant Major Gladwell already took off. Sergeant Major Thomas, if you have any words of wisdom or teaching, coaching, and mentoring you would like to provide us, it is absolutely welcome. If you would like to come up and say a few words.
Sure. Thanks, Greg, for the invitation, and thank all of you for what you continue to do. I think the first step of getting after the problem that you laid out is what I'm saying right now. The vertical and the horizontal sharing of information across the not only the brigades, but also all of the components, reserve, National Guard, and the active Army. But I tell you, there's another part of getting after this culture, and you led it off with a great introductory. It is the culture. And the number one part of getting after this culture is we all are professional, but we all belong to a professional organization. And we need to, I solicit your help in pushing the membership in Quad A, Army Aviation Association of America, where all of us are right now. The organization can do a lot of things. Historically, there hadn't been a lot of focus on a lot of enlisted issues. But I think that culture is also shifting to where there will be. I sat on the National Executive Board with Sergeant Major Glidewell, Sergeant Major Rich, the 3 enlisted guys that sits on that board. You're probably going to see some things coming out of Quad A to help you out in your camp post stations and formations on all of the compos. So I'm asking that you talk Quad A up, push the membership. We can do better with the membership, and they will start focusing on things to help aviation, to help the branch, to further some of the issues on the Hill, up at the Pentagon, and different places where it's appropriate. But to do that, we need the membership to help do it. And it's not that expensive, not that costly. So if you have questions or anything about that, please contact myself, and we can get that rolling. But you will see some things that Quad A is going to start doing out in your formation geared toward the enlisted side of the house. But no, I just appreciate what you're saying. Getting after the hat process is already taking place from what I see inside the organization right now. And that is the cross-sharing of this information, horizontal and vertical. And we got to continue to do that when you leave this forum and to get after this issue. I see the next president of Quad A just walked in, and I just signed them up to start looking at initiative for the enlisted soldiers, and I just signed the enlisted soldiers up and the leadership here to get the membership up on the enlisted side, and we can do that together. And we're going to be looking at you out at UAS too to bring you into the professionalism of Army aviation into the culture. You know, you look at the history in this last magazine that Quad A put out. You know, that is our culture. And we need to look at that and embed it and take it and bring it into the future to turn all these things around that the sergeant majors up here have been talking about. And I applaud each one of you for what you're doing. God bless you.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. Okay, hey, I think there's another session in this room, so we are going to have to vacate it. Thank you for everyone for attending. More importantly, Brian, John, and Steve, thanks for participating.